the Bears.
G'day everybody, here with another Bears Legends on a Saturday. We're here with legend Bruce Walker. Thanks very much for joining Yassin Countrywide, Bruce. We really do appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, no trouble.
That's all right. Tell us a little bit of when you grew up in Queensland, in Brizzy.
Yeah, I was born in Brisbane and
Yep.
I went to Villanova College, played rugby union until I left school.
Yeah,
And, had a little bit of social rugby for a year because Dad wanted me to concentrate on my apprenticeship. But then I joined Eastern Suburbs Tigers in under 17s.
Yep.
My dad played there, Jim Walker. He won premierships in 1951 and 52 with these.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
So that's the club I wanted to play for.
Yeah.
Under 17s and under 18s, and then I had a year in grade and then moved to North Sydney.
Okay, so how did you end up at the Bears? Had somebody come and sign you up, or?
Yeah, well, as I said, I played under 17s and under 18s, and we won a premiership at under 17s. We lost the grand final in under 18s, and then came into grade. I played a handful of first grade games that year, but mostly reserve grade. And when the finals came around, first grade didn't make the finals, but we did in reserve grade. So we played, I'm not sure how many finals we played, but then we made the grand final. We actually won the grand final.
Yeah.
And against all odds, we were the underdogs.
Yeah, best way to be.
But we won. And then, I think the following week I got a phone call from North Sydney. Because they apparently had sent, I'm not quite sure who came up to watch the games, but they came up to watch the guy playing first grade for Brothers in the finals, and his name was Lenny Dittmar.
Okay,
And they flew both of us down to North Sydney.
Yeah.
But he decided not to come, but I took the gamble and said, I'll come down. So that's how so I got here, and it's always not sure who was supposed to have saw me play, but when I was playing well, it was everybody that saw me play. But when
absolutely.
I wasn't having a great game, nobody knew me. But anyway, that's how I came. I signed a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
And then
Well, tell us about the first training session. I think there was a little bit of a story about that, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, I was pretty shy. I was 19 when I came down to Sydney.
Yep.
And Roy Francis was the coach. He was the one that rang me up. And, the very first training session, though, it was pouring with rain. And North Sydney Oval, of course, with the cricket pitch, you weren't allowed to use the centre of it. So all he said was, in pouring rain, he just said, everybody just do 20 laps.
Yeah, right.
So I was feeling like I wanted to get back in the car and drive home again. Because that was a pretty ordinary
training session.
But, having said that, I was part of my contract that I was to live in a house with a family for the first 12 months. The club paid for that, so I was rather than just being in a place by myself. So that was good.
Yeah, okay, So you played 7 years with the Bears?
Yes, 7 years with the Bears.
Yeah, from 71, was it? 77?
71 to 77.
Yeah. And over those 7 years, Bruce, you had a few different coaches?
Yeah, well, Roy Francis went home about 2 weeks after I got down here. So,
okay.
So Merv Hicks, he'd signed from Canterbury, so he took over as captain coach.
Yep.
And then after Merv, we had Noel Kelly.
Yep.
And then after Noel Kelly, Bill Hampton took over as captain coach.
Yeah. And the different coaching styles between those? Who do you reckon had the best style?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that Merv was, in an inventive or anything like that. It was pretty basic football in those days. It was because they never played left and right, so it was basically you get the ball, you take it 2 to the left, and then you bring it back so the back's to use the ball and then you wrap around. And, Noel Kelly was a great bloke, Noel Kelly. But Noel Kelly's philosophy was just go out and bash it. And,
you weren't really into that, were you, Bruce?
no, I wasn't. But
there's a bit of story about that.
But you know, we had with Noel Kelly in 1974, we had a really good side. Tim Pickup, Keith Houghton, Keith Harris, Brian Anderson, Eddie Hickley. You know, we had a lot of good players. And we missed the semi-finals by 1 point. We were in the finals nearly all year until St George knocked us out in the second last game. We had to rely on somebody else to win in the last game, and that didn't happen. But I broke my ankle that year and I missed 7 weeks. Brian Anderson missed 6. So I think we were a bit unfortunate not to have made the semis that year. It was a good year.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, and not too many other good years. One thing 7 years, and the Bears were much maligned for a lot of poor performances, and that's true. But you know, we could sometimes have a bad performance and then come out and win unexpectedly.
Beat the top team.
But we never got the wooden spoon when I was. There was a lot of other clubs that did. That's awesome.
Well, that's a good thing. Yeah. And the MCO Cup, or was it the MCO Cup?
It was the MCO Cup in those days. We
well, pretty good at the 20-minute quarters, weren't we?
Well, I can remember that year too. It was 75, 76, 76. And I was captain that year, but we had to play East the very first MCO Cup game. And they had won the premiership 74 and 75. So we weren't expected to win, but we did. And we got all the way through to the final against Balmain. And unfortunately,
Balmain beat us.
I remember Lockwood threw an inside pass to Neil Pringle, and he scored on the post. I scored in that game. I scored a try for the Bears, but unfortunately we just didn't get across the line.
I remember that very well. I'm the youngest of 8, and the 7 above me were all Balmain supporters. So I knew all about it. So you played for the Kangaroos as well, or you've done a tour?
Yeah, I did a tour. Strange thing, I never really thought about leaving the Bears. I actually, in my last year, in the pre-season, I approached the president, I think Bob Cooley at the time, about a new contract. But I think they balked at the money that I was asking and said, you'll be the first player we'll sign at the end of the year. But then I think it was only weeks after that, Ken Arthurson rang me up. So I went and had a chat with him, and he offered me a 4-year contract. And the money was, I was quite happy with that. I lived at DY. Manly were pretty good team.
You won a premiership with Manly,
so they won 72 and 73, and then so I joined Manly, and fortunately we won the grand final that year on a replay. And I made the Kangaroo tour. So
that's awesome. Well, that was it was sad to lose you, but it was good for you. You know, like you won a grand final here. Like, you know, there's not many players that can say they've done that. You know,
that's right. So, a lot of players, a lot of very, very, very good players who never won premiership.
Absolutely.
So
and you're one of 50 odd that's actually played for New South Wales and Queensland.
And I think I was the last player to have played State of Origin that had played for New South Wales prior to Queensland State of Origin.
That's awesome.
It was good. I mean, it was. I'm a devout Queenslander, and you know, I put the maroon scarf on when Origin comes around. But you know, the day I was proud to have played for New South Wales, because in those days you played for the state that you were playing footy in. There was no State of Origin, and so to have played for New South Wales, it was a big honour for me. And I was absolutely happy to have done that. It's It's maroon and white for me. So.
Yeah, okay, well, we won't hold that against you. But so no, we've got Gary Larson, Billy Moore, Steve, Jacko, you know.
Gary Boasted,
You can just keep going, Dallas.
Rod Reddy, all those guys have played for New South Wales before the state of origin. So.
Yeah, but the Bears, we're full of Queensland representatives, aren't we?
That's right.
We've got heaps of them, yeah. So, and what was it like playing with Billy Hamilton and Don McKinnon and blokes like that?
Well, Donnie came in at the end when I think he came in a year or two after I went to Manly.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
So Donnie played a little bit of lower grades, I think, 77.
Yeah.
But Bill was a good coach. He was a very good ball player, Bill, and he encouraged forwards that if he was going to run the ball up, that you've got to follow him up so he can use the ball.
Yeah,
he was a good player, Bill. He was a great choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
73, I think. But no, I thought Bill was a good coach. He used the ball a lot, and I think, like I was more known for running onto passes and through gaps rather than being the ball, using the ball. But Bill sort of helped me there with that game too. Offloading when you instead of just making a break and going as far as you can, look for support.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I thought Bill was a good coach.
Yeah, Graham Furlong was like that too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It was a run off the ball,
Yeah.
So you got any funny stories you can share with us, Bruce? Or?
Well, I suppose there's quite a few. There was a centre we had playing with us, Owen O'Donnell, and Owen was a good player. He played for Australia in a series here in Australia. I can't think now, but that was early 70s anyway. He was fast. He was a good player, but he read a book apparently about Colbert, the fullback from France.
Okay.
And he had a reputation of eating pies and smoking before
the games
and at training. And sure enough, one day of training, Owen O'Donnell was sort of doing a few laps and warming up, and next minute you got a packet of cigarettes out. And let's go, what are you doing? So that was crazy. Yeah. But then the first year, I was at Norths. We had, and Roy Francis had brought in a lot of pommies. Big players. Jim Mills, lovely bloke, Jim Mills, but he was a giant. And of course we had Merv Hicks. And our end of season trip was down to Thredbo, to the Snow. And we were down at the Keller Inn this one night and had a band playing, and everyone's having a few drinks and enjoying themselves. And the band had a break, so next thing you know, Merv Hicks could play the piano, and they had a bit of an organ up there on it. And Jim Mills had a really nice voice.
Okay.
So big Jim Mills and big Merv Hicks get up onto the stage and start playing the song. And Jim Mills sang the Green Green Grass at Home. And it was really, really well done. Everybody in the place was packed out, and everybody just roared and applauding and whatever.
Wow, cool.
So they sang it again. And once again, everybody was listening, and then the applause was almost as raucous. So they sang it again. After the third time, the band was looking around, and they weren't going to go up and tell them to get off. So they came over to us and sort of said, "Can you go and get those guys off so we can get back to playing?" So I think they would have just sang it all night if they had been left there.
Absolutely.
That was a fun time.
That was good. You played lock, second row. I think you've done a stint in front row too, didn't you? What was your favourite position?
I played back row, second row a lot. For all of my career until my last year. and I was injury prone in my last year, so I played a fair bit of reserve grade, and I'm just trying to think who the coach was. The little 5'8" we used to call him. I'll think of it. But anyway, he put me in the front row a few times. And,
So what was your preferred position?
Well, I prefer lock. Only because, once again, in those days, there's no left and right, but the traditional positioning was your wingers, and then if you're on the left side of the field, or one side of the field, then the forwards the front rowers would normally defend in the middle, and then the back row was a bit wider, and then lock. But I used to stand inside the halfback or 5'8". And in those days also, the lock, Ron Coote was my hero, and guys like Johnny Raper, the lock was supposed to be the cover defender. And I was actually, in all modesty, pretty good at cover defending. So I used to prefer lock.
Okay.
And sometimes in the earlier days, the lock would actually stand behind the line, but I did that once and probably thought the mate broken into shred right around. So I decided not to do that anymore. I'd stay up in the line and just when the player went across the other side of the field, you'd drop back and start going across the cover in case something made a break.
After footy, mate, you got into did a bit for the Men of the League or Family League, that it's called.
I worked for. I was in transport for a long time in sales, and but then I moved to Adelaide in 2004 and started with. I was general manager of the South Australian Rugby League for 4 years, employed by the ARL. I came back to Sydney and I worked for 4 years with New South Wales Rugby League in government. And then I worked for 5 years with the NRL in government. And then I was asked to interview for the state manager for Men of League. And as it turned out, the NRL was making some redundancies, so I was offered the position at Men of League and then took a redundancy from the NRL. And I worked as state manager for 3 years before COVID. And that was a great job, I loved that job. 25 volunteer committees around New South Wales. All over the state, 20 heads down to Bega and Canberra, Wagga, everywhere. And so my role was to help those committees run fundraising events, bowls days or golf days or luncheons or race days or whatever it might be. And so I travelled quite extensively. And a lot of the time I was away weekends and I'd come back. But it was a great job because those guys really wanted somebody from head office to come to their function and say, hey, thanks for doing what you're doing.
That's a great organisation, isn't it?
It's fantastic. I mean, in the 3 years that I was there, the last 2 years, we were able to give out over $1 million in grants.
That's awesome.
It's not just about old football players. It's anybody that's had a rugby league connection, whether it be a child or whether it be a woman, or somebody who's just volunteered in the committee, or maybe it's been a junior referee or whatever it might be. And helped a lot of people in the country, whether somebody who's a child or somebody might have developed cancer and they have to come to Westmead Hospital for weeks and months at a time, and their families usually come down and stay, so all of a sudden there's no income. So we've been able to help a lot of families from the country with paying mortgages and rents and things like that, and helping with operations and whatever. And there's a committee that assesses those grants, and I was part of that committee with the National Wellbeing Manager and the CEO and Men of League. And we always had an independent from the NRL, or we had a NRLW player come on board. So But we were able to do that because we had a system when I first started, was that the grants would come in and then the committee would meet once a month, assess those grants, either approve or send back for more information.
Yep.
When the Family League, which is now known as, employed the National Wellbeing Manager, a lovely girl called Jess McCartney, and she said that's a crazy system. So what she did was get the committees to email her the grant applications. She would then email them out to the committee, and we would have a meeting and assess those grants, and they'd be then assessed and back to the committee within 48 hours.
Yeah, right.
So instead of every month, the grants were being assessed. So that's why we were able to spend more money on grants in the last couple of years than we had in the previous years, because grants were being assessed so much quicker.
Yeah. Shout out to Family League. If you're not a member, please join up. I think it's about $20 join up fee, I think, now. Talking to Ken Vassy about that as well. Join up.
Anybody can join Family League. It doesn't have to be. A lot of people think that you have to be a rugby league player to join, but anybody can join.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't even have to have a rugby league connection. Just anybody at all can join Family League, and that's a big fundraiser. So the majority of the money comes in through the volunteer committee's fundraising. Then you get membership, you get sponsorship, and as my role, I used to apply for club grants as well. So many of the clubs in New South Wales, many of the leagues clubs would support Family League with grants, club grants.
Don't hesitate to get on board. Great organisation. Get back to yourself. Yes, you and Tugboat and a couple other fellas started up another footy organisation out there at Hornsby. Is that right?
In Turramurra. It's called the Ku-ring-gai Cups.
Okay.
And how it came about was that my role with the NRL, when I was with the New South Wales Rugby League, it was based in Western Sydney when the Giants, AFL Giants came in. So my role was to go around to councils, build relationships, and then help all the junior rugby league clubs that play on council grounds, and 95% of them do. 150 junior clubs in Sydney play at council grounds. So my role was to help those clubs improve facilities, better lights, drainage, parking, whatever it might be, canteens, change rooms. So I'd build all those relationships with Western Sydney councils, but then when I joined the NRL, it encompassed all the councils in Sydney, and there were at those times 52 councils before nominations. So I'd knock on their door, build relationships with the maintenance team and general managers, etc. But when I came to Ku-ring-gai Council, they came in, and I lived at Wollonga at the time. But when I came to knock on their door, they said, "Well, Bruce, we don't have a junior rugby league club in Ku-ring-gai. We have one in Hornsby Council, which was Asquith. Had one down in Willoughby Council, which was Willoughby Roos, but there was none in Ku-ring-gai. It was quite a big space. So they said to me at the time, "Do you reckon we could get a club?" And I came home and said to my wife, I said, "It's a really good idea because there's a lot of space between those two other clubs. It's a lot of people." And I said, "You just need somebody to drive it." So she turned around and she said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And so I worked with a friend of mine, Michael Asensio at New South Wales Rugby League before we both went to the NRL. And he had two boys, two sons, but I said to him, "Okay, this is the plan. Do you want to help me start the club?" And he said, "Yeah." Cool. And so I came up with the name the Cubs because it was in North Sydney Bears territory, junior rugby league club, and I think it's
Yeah, great
a
idea.
new little club starting, so I call them the Cubs.
Yeah, that's
And,
awesome.
And I like the colours. There were no colours, brown and yellow.
Yeah.
So I designed a striped jersey, brown and yellow, and went to North Sydney Leagues and said, "Can I start a club?" I went back to council and said, "If I'm going to start a club, I need a ground."
Yeah.
So they gave me a ground called Barra Brewery, which was at St Ives, shared with Old Boys Soccer. And then we went back to the NRL and we did vertical drops at train stations, at schools, and we ran a few come and try days. And that's when I first met Mark Maltby, Mark and Charlotte and their son Ethan. They were the very first family to join.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Mark's been with the club ever since, and it's just been an amazing supporter of the Cubs. But yeah, we started that first year in 2015 with an under 6 side and an combined under 8 side and a combined under 10 side. So Michael coached the under 6s and I coached the under 8s, and Mark coached the under 10s. And then it's gone from strength to strength. The next year we had 5 teams, and the year after that we had 7, and now the Cubs are in every grade from under 6s through to under 16s, and 3 girl sides as well.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. That's
So
great.
it's been great.
They won a couple of premierships last year too.
They did. They won a couple of premierships this year. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll do a follow up on that. We'll go and say hello and just do a bit of a wrap on that during next year. Anything else you'd like to yarn about, Chris?
I suppose today's game is a lot different to when I played. All of our training was aerobic training because you had to play for 80 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was only at the end of my career where people started doing weights. I never did weights, but I think it's just so that was introduced the milkless machines and things like that at the gym. But we fooled around with a few weights, handmade weights at home. But as I said, once again, our training was all aerobic because you had to play 80 minutes. Whereas today's players, they're full time. They have recovery sessions the day after games. We played on Sunday. You had to get up and go back to work on Monday. Nowadays they're all full-time professionals and got access to physios and doctors and whatever at the top of the hat. But I think also there's a lot of players that are, because they do so much strength and conditioning, strength training with weights, that they don't probably have as much body fat as we did.
Yeah.
When I say body fat, it's their muscles are also taut. In my day, there was never such thing as a pec muscle. You might tear a hamstring, but you never tore a pec muscle. You didn't even tear a bicep. There's a hamstring or a calf you might tear. But a lot of those injuries are due to the fact that they're so taut. And once again, I think the games. I've watched some of the old games, and we played under the 5 metre rule. So you had to use the ball a lot more than one, because you were trying to hit the ball up from your own line. Well, they're only 10 metres, 5 metres away, so you couldn't get. Whereas nowadays, the ball will go down to the front rower on the try line, and he'll run 10, 15 metres before they get there. You would play the ball. The other team's going back 10 metres. You get somebody else running on the ball. So you can make 60 metres in 6 tackles. You're down there into the field. You put the ball up, and they hope they make an effort. So an error. Whereas in nowadays, particularly when I was at Manly, we used to throw the ball out and attack from your own 25. And Manly still do that today. They still attack from their own. One of the few teams that do attack from their own 25. It's because they've got speed. So it's a different game altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bears coming back as the A team. There's a lot of talk about Pacific Islands and Perth. There's talk about the Rams, Adelaide. What's your thoughts on that, Bruce?
Well, I mean, I'd love to see the Bears come back in. I mean, there are many Bears supporters still out there.
Absolutely.
This year was a big thing for the Bears. Jason Taylor got the New South Wales Cup tied into the grand final. And we're very unlucky to lose that game. But
absolutely.
Once again, the junior league is strong in Bears territory.
Yep.
And I'd like to see the Bears come back in. And it's practical, I think, that they have to relocate.
Yeah.
They're not going to bring them back into Sydney.
Yeah, that's right.
But Perth is a very strong rugby league junior league over here. And Adelaide, and I worked in Adelaide in school development in Adelaide, and when I left in Adelaide, there were 18 schools playing in a rugby league competition.
Yep.
In school time.
Yeah, cool.
And 10 primary schools were playing in a school competition.
Yep.
So the kids love the game down there. It's just that the junior league is only 8 clubs.
Yeah.
So it's not as strong as Darwin. But having said that, nowadays it's different to what it was even with the Rams. But like, look at teams now. If you're in Sydney, you've got to travel to Townsville, you've got to travel to Brisbane twice. There's 2 teams there. You've got to travel to Gold Coast. You've got to go to Canberra. Teams playing in Adelaide, teams playing in Perth. You go to New Zealand. You go to Melbourne. So they're away, 2 and 3 days just about every week.
Yeah.
So for a team to relocate to Adelaide, and you would think, logically speaking, that there would be 2 or 3 or 4 home games at North Sydney Oval.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So you're over in Perth, and then once again, you're full-time professional. So it's not as though you've got to try and find a job as a bricklayer in Adelaide. You're getting paid to play footy.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Exactly.
You relocate, and team guys, you see people every day. One minute they're playing for New Zealand. Next thing you know, they're playing for Brisbane. One team's you're playing for North Queensland, then you're playing for Melbourne.
Yeah.
So people travel and move about, and I don't see there's any reason why they couldn't go to Adelaide, which is a lot closer than Perth. So cost-wise.
Yeah. I'm not sure, is there a time difference between Sydney and Adelaide? I don't think there is
It's half an hour difference.
Okay.
Adelaide's half an hour behind, but Perth's 2 hours behind.
Yeah.
So
that's
nothing.
It's a bit of an advantage for the Fox Sports and Channel 9. They get an extra
And the other
game.
thing too, with regard to the Bears, when I started playing with the Bears in the 70s, North Sydney was the biggest junior league in Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was bigger than Penrith, bigger than Parramatta, because we had clubs all the way from Kirribilli, Mossman, Crow's Nest, all the way up through to Barara. And then when the Bears were kicked out of the NRL, the junior league nosedived. And now there's, including the Cubs, there's only 8 clubs.
Yeah, okay.
But the growth is North Sydney Junior League is one of the few junior leagues that's actually got growth in their numbers.
Yeah, cool.
So if they had the Bears back in, you'd see all those clubs like I formed, but you'd find that all of a sudden Kirribilli would come back, and Crow's Nest would come back, and Mossman would come back. So
absolutely.
it would be an enormous boost for the junior rugby league and for rugby league in Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks very much, Bruce Walker.
Yeah, no problem.
Spending time with Yassin Country Wide, mate. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And bring back the Bears.
Bring back the Bears.